So I started voiceover in 2016, but the career really began in 2020. And as we all know, 2020 was actually a very good year for voiceover. So I'm very thankful.
It was a very good year for voiceover.
Yes, we survived. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of the origin story of the career. But I mean, 2016, yeah, kind of like December of 2016 was when I got my first job.
Right. So. And it took you only 2 months.
It did. Now, I understand I do have some niche things that can help me, like, I'm sure if I listened to it now, I'd be appalled by the quality and, how it sounded. But
yeah,
I did do my Indian accent for that one. So I'm sure that definitely helped me book that. So, because I do multiple accents. So that I think that was the big thing that kind of got me in the door at first. And then, later through that as well.
Dialect training. Because I noticed, because yes, I cyber stalked you as any good host should, and you minored in French and Italian, right?
I did, yes, because my opera training. I mean, you had to be comfortable with languages. I love studying languages anyway, so and I was already like, well, we're in college, this is the time to do everything, and 18 full credit hours wasn't enough for me, so I decided to do minors in both French and Italian too, and other hobbies. And anyway, I was an overachiever.
Huh. Are there any other languages you speak?
Well, I mean, French I spent the most time with. Italian as well. I mean, I did speak a little bit of German. I've forgotten quite a bit of it, but I'm sure I can pick it back up again. And then I did a little bit of Spanish. We did some Russian diction, some Portuguese diction, but I would say, like, with confidence, let's stick to French and Italian more so. German on a very, very like basic intermediate level.
So you speak opera German. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, probably. I mean,
okay.
Well, it's not quite like
enough to get by in opera.
German. I wouldn't. Yeah, it's more like slightly high German. Yeah.
Right. I used to say I speak restaurant Spanish. Not necessarily for ordering food, but because for a very long time I was the head host of, at the time, the busiest Applebee's in the world. Believe it or not, I ran the door, and my whole crew of SAs, service assistants, fancy way of saying busboys, all of them, Spanish was their primary language, and some of their fluency in English was better than others. So I had to learn to say, Mesa 22 disponible, váyanse, like, hey, table 22 is ready. So like that was so I called it restaurant Spanish. I could talk to my guys, and if someone was coming in to try to fill out an application, they're like, trabajo. And I'm like, oh, trabajo, work. Here's an application. Baño? Right. Oh yeah, the bathroom's over there.
Yeah.
So, that's very cool. So French and Italian and we'll call it opera German.
Opera German.
How much has your opera training informed your voiceover training?
Immensely. And also voiceover training has informed my continuous opera work as well, because I think obviously with vocal training, understanding the instrument, that's a given. But I think even beyond that, just knowing breath support, knowing phrasing, knowing rhythm, as basic musicians anyway, but in terms of with opera too, I feel like we are presented with the idea of learning how to speak properly and being very mindful of vocal health, as well as when we have to teach other people, vocal pedagogy, we really learn what's happening underneath the skin, what's happening with the muscles, with the ligaments, and how to, make sure that we are keeping things safe and able to do it. Plus, when you have to do, say, a video game job and you have to do efforts, how can you safely do that without hurting yourself? You can't do it from here because this is not, meant for that. So you're supposed to use muscles that are much lower in your abdomen to be able to perform that in a safe and secure way. So I definitely do rely on that. And there are times where I notice if something is giving me trouble, I kind of have to go back of like, well, how would I approach this if this was like a piece and that I'm working on or I'm practicing? How would that help me be able to get around this? But then also for voiceover has helped me even in my singing, because with opera, it's a little bit messed up in the sense that we aren't really given business sense. We're not given the idea of how to really run a business. We're just the artist, which I think is so silly, because that's not how you can survive, unfortunately, in this day and age.
Right.
So I think knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to, represent myself, knowing how to really advocate for myself when I can say, no, 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 I deserve more money. No, 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 the amount of work that you're asking me to do, and for that rate, that doesn't work. Which I
Right.
think before I was just so thankful to have any work given to me.
Yeah.
So now it's more of I can approach this from a place of joy and from a place of abundance rather
Hmm.
than a place of desperation and need. So they
Right.
really have informed the other.
Right. It helps you run your business supply trade from a position of agency and
Yes,
empowerment.
absolutely.
You're absolutely right, because I have noticed that too. Is that, because I was a theater major, I wanted to be an actor, and actors, singers, dancers, models, musicians tend to think you are only operate from gig to gig, and you work for
Yes,
whoever is hiring you for this project. Whereas voice actors, at least the business savvy ones who got a better understanding of the business of themselves, is that you don't work for anybody, you work with
absolutely.
everybody.
Yes.
And it's a B2B relationship.
Hmm.
So it sounds like that voiceover and opera has had a very reciprocal, like synergistic relationship for you.
Most definitely. And I'm still trying to maintain that balance, even still to this day, of being able to do opera performances or musical theater or whatever kind of performing it is in tandem with voiceover.
Hmm.
Because, I think there are useful skills to have, and sometimes that has gotten me the job. Or because I have the flexibility to do this, I have the ability to do a month-long opera gig and not have to worry about, oh, I have to ask for time off of work. Mm-mm.
Mm.
I can, bring the travel gear. I have a good connection with internet. We're good. We're set.
Hmm.
So it definitely has been beneficial that I can be able to have that balance between the two and still feel creatively and artistically fulfilled, even, with having these two that are in slightly different, sectors of the artistic world, but still performance and still related in that sense.
Right, right. You talked a lot about your opera informs your voiceover performance on a vocal level. Would you say is informing on a storytelling level? Like, are you a better storyteller as a voice actor because of your opera training?
Oh, I think so. I definitely think so because, if you have to do long form narration, you have to be able to keep the story going even in page 35, even in page 53. It's not just a 20-second thing. You have to be able
Hmm.
to maintain it. And for operas that are several hours long, we're doing the same thing. So it's kind
Right.
of nice to have that in addition. No, definitely, I would agree.
Right. I tell my students that all voice acting is storytelling, and it all has a beginning, a middle, an end, an arc, and a message.
Hmm.
And with AI doing whatever it's been doing and whatever it will continue to do, I tell my students about what's called the relevance gap.
Hmm.
You want to be relevant in voiceover, and there's this widening gap that you kind of have to hop over to get from I want to be a voice actor to I am earning a living as a voice actor. AI is starting to widen that gap
Hmm.
for a whole bunch of reasons. So I tell everybody, theater training, on camera training,
Yeah.
improvisational training, stand up comedy training,
Yes.
and opera training. If you have one of those five as a prerequisite before you start your voiceover training, you have a much better chance of being successful in voiceover. Do you agree? Do you have any observations on that?
I would 100% agree with that because I think in addition to all that you've mentioned, yes, we need to have the improvisational, we need to have the vocal technique, we need to have that, the ability to know with a situation, how would my character be in this moment reacting and all of that.
Hmm.
Those type of people in those sectors deal with rejection daily. We are not worried about, oh, I haven't heard about this job, or oh, I auditioned for this much and I haven't heard a word. That's a Tuesday for me. I am used to that. We have what's called PFOs, or please F offs, in the
Ooh.
opera world, where they
Oh,
send
okay.
letters of like, oh, you received so many, applicants, and oh, you just weren't chosen this year. We call it a PFO. So I'm used to that. It doesn't bother me if I don't hear about a job or I send it and forget it. We're used to that. And anyone, actor, stand-up comedian, right? Any one of these people deals with that on a daily basis, that we are not deterred from being able to say, I'm going to audition for this. I'm going to put my hat in the ring. Let's go for it. Because
Hmm.
you're not going to know. Yes, it can be a numbers game, but I think beyond that, we are still attaching the creativity to it. And we know someone's going to bite. Just maybe it's this person, maybe it's this person, but I'm I know in order for me to attain this, I have to do this. Auditioning is part of the job. And it is part of the job for all of those as well.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I have a feeling that everyone is enjoying our conversation right now, but I know why our viewers are here today is because they want to know about lead generation. It is one of those it's one of those little buzzword phrases that I know that everyone in voiceover will flock to. It's the how do I get an agent?
Yep.
Which pay-to-play site should I use? Should I join SAG-AFTRA? How should I incorporate? And how do I find clients?
Right.
So talk about it's not even a transition, but like, how did the concept of lead generation come to you, and what made you decide to turn it into like another part of your business model?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think obviously being a freelance artist myself and trying to find my own gigs for singing performances, I had to get used to how do I find people who want to hear me? How do I find people to reach out to this performing arts organization, this church, this concert series, people that put this on. I had to get used to that even before. And then some of my other jobs before going into voiceover, I was a marketing assistant. And so I had to get used to finding information about patrons or finding out who could potentially be an audience member for our upcoming shows, because I was for a nonprofit opera organization. So I was very used to compiling this data, looking for this data, that when people were saying, with let's say like when I took Playbook and Mark Scott was talking about, lead generation, and I thought like, oh wow, like I'm already used to doing this. This isn't like a huge, brand new skill set. Just had to hone it a little bit better. That when it came to hiring a lead generator for myself, I thought, well, maybe I need to put together like some basic little way to train them as to how to find this. That I ended up sharing it with my mastermind group. I was like, oh, I came up with this little, tiny training module. If you want to give it to your people that you're training, like, feel free. That every single one of them was like, this should be a course. Like, this should be something that you should offer to people. Why aren't you making this something? And I'm like, I didn't even think about that. Like, that actually kind of makes sense. And it'll just go hand in hand. And I noticed, like, looking on Facebook groups and everything, like, no one was really providing a service or providing a way to have multiple methods to find this. People would say, oh yeah, just go get a lead generator. Well, you can go on Fiverr, you could go on, Upwork, you can go wherever you want to find one. But if they are not involved in the industry, how are they supposed to know how to find clients? Because in their mind, they're thinking, oh, well, you want to work with other voiceover actors, right? Not quite, because they're not going to get us the jobs necessarily. We need to find the right kind of client for the right kind of genre, for the right kind of work. So it just sort of made sense to me that there was a little bit of a hole that needed to be filled with. We need someone to provide this service, and maybe I'm supposed to help to do that. But I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I definitely hope that some of my methods can help people be able to find it more efficiently and more confidently rather than feel frustrated.
So the voiceover community you didn't decide to do this. The voiceover community told you that you needed to do this.
Yes, I believe it was a little nudge from the voiceover community that this was something that needed to be done. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, hello, Mariella, who I also met for the first time at VO Atlanta, but we've known each other for quite some time. Hello, Mariella. Hope you're doing good. Everybody, you are all welcome to start typing in your lead generation questions for Nadia. In the meantime, I'm curious how much of an influence from what you were doing, working in the marketing, doing your marketing stuff, and how much the principles overlapped with voiceover, but also, and then how different is it? Because I know that voiceover is the square peg of the round holes at so many things when people outside the industry are trying to understand or help or make money.
Mm-hmm. I think, obviously, Google, LinkedIn, those are tried and true methods, and those haven't really changed. But I think what it really comes down to is knowing how to specify your search, how to make your search that much more accurate. And so knowing the keywords, knowing the job titles, knowing, if you're using social media, knowing which hashtags are going to be used by the people that you want to eventually reach out to. Like, that's really what it comes down to is, maybe you could look at a job posting for something and then you could be able to get it that way. But for us, we almost kind of have to go around. We can't necessarily reach out to the CEO. They're going to be much too busy, but we have to find that right person that we know they're probably going to be the person that works with voice actors. They're probably going to be the person that's going to be involved with creating the content that we can then provide the voice to help elevate. So in a way, we almost have to have the exact planning like mapped out before we can even go in. Whereas I think with maybe some other industries, you don't necessarily have to have as much planned out. You can be able to do it that way. Plus, we can't necessarily go and get like a pre-existing link of things. Not necessarily. You know, maybe you can be able to find a whole listing of e-learning companies, which can be very helpful. But even within that, you still have to know who in the e-learning company to reach out to.
Right. That's where most people hit the wall. It's finding the company isn't hard, but finding the decision maker, that's the challenge, much less the decision maker's contact information.
That is the other thing. And there are tools and there are methods to help you find that. But I would agree. I think that's the one last step that gets people to be a little, I don't really know what to do here. And even with a lead generation you get from, or a lead generator, you get from like Upwork or something, they'll probably just send you the company names. Here, look at all these companies I found. Okay, that's great. But who do I talk to? Who is that person? There are X amount of employees at the company. How do I know that this is the person who can possibly give me a job so I can be able to work with them, you know?
How much of it have you noticed, has been building lists based on Google looking for production companies, marketing firms, ad agencies, and how much of it has been you looking around on social media platforms and using keywords, using hashtags? Like how much is one of them more effective than the other in the broadest sense?
I think
for our purposes as voice actors.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think it depends on what genre. I truly believe that. I think if you, let's say, for example, the e-learning example we were just talking about earlier, I think having a listing can be very advantageous for that. But I think having, say, if you're trying to find a documentary producer, that isn't going to compute. You're not going to be able to find that. So if you're looking for more non-broadcast narration or like corporate, let's say e-learning, let's say, you could even put like video game developers possibly in that sort of Venn diagram circle. Let's put that image in our mind. You can then look for a listing. But I think, using social media depends on, then it goes like which platform for which genre, because some of them really like to use LinkedIn, some of them really like to use X, some of them really like to use Instagram. So you kind of have to know which ones they live on. But then if you're trying to create or connect with like-minded individuals, like-minded creatives, rather than like the company to find the contact, that's where you might have to go through social media. That's where you might have to go through the roundabout ways like IMDb, or maybe looking through conferences or awards and finding people that way. So I think it depends on what genre you're searching for, what genre are you looking to build, and then also, even beyond that, who are you trying to connect with? Is it creative? That would be whether you would need a list or through social media.
And the creative is not always the decision maker, and the decision maker isn't always a creative.
Correct. That's the other thing. And again, you have to know the job titles or multiple job titles that could be a possibility that you could then reach out to.
Okay. I've been maintaining for a while that most creatives or decision makers are paying absolutely no attention to anything that any of us voice actors are doing on social media. I maintain that if they are, they're looking to see if we're an NDA violator, a client basher, or some form of political or religious whack job, because they're looking to see if we have the potential to damage their finances or their reputation. Do you agree? And if not 100%, how much percent do you agree with that? And why?
I think it's an absolutely valid statement. And that is the dangers, I think, with social media, is people want to know who you are. And yes, that is important for maintaining a client relationship. I mean, maybe right off the bat, like you said, not necessarily going to be checking out your latest post and be like, cool, we like it. Let's hit a little like, they're going to be, if you're like your statement you said earlier, we are working with them. We are in part of the creative team. That's how we market ourselves when we're sending our cold email. Think of me as another extension of your team. We are obviously maintaining this business relationship. If anybody else on that team says something that could harm, obviously they're done, they're booted. So
Hmm.
we need to, I think it is vital to be sure that it is clean. Okay, like, I say that, but one of my highest performing reels on Instagram was when I cursed sang an opera. So, I can't necessarily say that. But
But you can't
it's
make that every single post.
no, of course not, because I'm gonna be
Right.
like, oh, it's this girl again, right? But within reason, if you are still showing your personality, but you're not being extremist, you're not, bullying, you're not doing anything like that, which like we know that's common sense,
Hmm.
then we're not going to have an issue. But yeah, of course, if you feel like you have to have those kinds of thoughts, maybe like Thumper said, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all and keep that to yourself and off of social media.
Hmm. So when you're trying to establish a relationship with a potential client, in your experience, and this is, I'm sure this is not an all or nothing question, but what has been more effective, the cold email or connecting on social media and trying to start some kind of conversation there?
I think the cold email, I personally love a cold email just to at least establish the fact that I am reaching out to you
Hmm.
and the follow up and, oh, I'm on vacation. Here are my, oh, here's my, updated studio. Oh, here's my new demo, whatever, those kind of emails that happen throughout the year. But sometimes if I am having, let's say, issue finding their initial contact information, or for whatever reason, their email, they're just like, they'd never check it, I will use social media as an additional way to stay top of mind or to at least establish more of a connection or put a face to a name. Yes, my picture's on my signature at the bottom, but maybe they don't even scroll that far. At least now they can see with social media, oh, this person liked my tweet. Why? Okay. Oh, okay. Then they can kind of put a face to a name, establish that you're a human being and not just an email in their inbox, because I'm sure they
Hmm.
get way too many. So I
Yes.
think it can be that extra little human interaction without knocking on their door and being a stalker. That you can, be able to have some sort of, here's a bit of my personality. If you choose to look at my profile, great. Otherwise, I'm going to just connect with you. Obviously, in a business professional setting, but whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be Instagram, whether it be X, there's some sort of way that you can put in your personality that is a little bit more day to day rather than, the one email that you sent 3 or 4 months ago that all of a sudden they didn't check. And then now they can see, oh, well, they liked my story yesterday. Oh, I forgot who that is. So it's a little more everyday interaction versus possibly monthly or quarterly, depending on how often you email them.
So is it safe to say you'd want to try to establish the relationship through the cold email, but try to maintain the relationship more on social media if you can?
Yes, that is at least what I prefer doing myself.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, that makes sense because some people only want one email from you, and then if they have something for you, they'll let you know because they've set up some form of folder,
Right,
whatever system that they've got your MP3 on file, and and thanks for the demo, leave me alone.
right.
Right. And obviously, some of them are more active on social media than others and maybe more inclined. Well, actually, with that, do you, let's say you did a cold email, it
Mhm.
worked. They said, "Great, thanks so much." And we know how low the response rate is, and much
Right.
less the click through rate, much less download of the demo. But if you actually do get an actual response from them, which we can't count on, do you then invite them on to join every single social media platform?
Mm-mm. I will, if with the information that I have found, I will try and get the sense of which one, just based off of activity, do they tend to frequent the most. And
Hmm.
that's the one that I will mark down as, and maybe some of them only use two, because I'll be honest, I technically have all of them, but like I haven't touched threads in Lord knows how many months. Like, it's just the way that it is. We cannot
Yeah.
possibly be able to check every single one because we're human beings as well as our clients and prospects. They also probably only use one or two. So I'll try and get a sense of which one or two do they tend to use. I'll mark that on my CRM, add them with that way. So that way, if for some reason I'm like, oh, I want to, talk to them on, oh, right, they don't use X. That's the one that only likes to use Instagram. Okay, got it. Make sure that I react with them or interact with them on Instagram instead. That way I'm not killing myself trying to start a conversation and just talking to a brick wall, but I might possibly interact with them in real time or maybe even a couple of days late. That'd be fine. But I would stick to which ones do they tend to frequent and just maintain that.
You read my mind, because in that answer, you were serving up what was going to be my next question anyway, was take a second to talk about CRMs. Which one do you use?
I use Nimble personally. I know other people like to use some other ones, but I'll be honest, when I was so overwhelmed with the amount of CRMs that when I saw Mark Scott had a Nimble course, I was like, done. I signed up for that one. But I like Nimble personally. Mhm.
Why does Nimble work best for you?
Well, I find that I like the layout of it, one. Two, I love the clock feature because that definitely, as a type A person, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'm running low on my clocks. I'm like, it's not green, and I have to just fix that. But also the ability to be able to create all these different lists, the ability to have it, sync in with the email and create all these different kinds of templates for, like what I was saying, oh, I'm on vacation for this, or oh, I'm speaking at this conference, and like, I'm away from this, and being able to have all of that listed, it made more sense to my brain compared to some other ones that I had tried. So it's just personal preference.
Okay. I don't use Nimble, so I'm not terribly familiar with it. I was using Cloze,
Okay.
Cloze, for a very long time, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got both of my websites migrated to Wix,
Uh-huh.
and Wix has its own built-in CRM, and you can do
Yeah.
email marketing and social media marketing on there. So I've switched to those. But the one thing that Wix does not have is, hey, it's been 3 months. You should reach out to so-and-so with this type of email based on where they are in the sales funnel. Does
Mm-hmm.
Nimble have functionality like that?
It'll more just if I can set up a reminder for myself. Oh, I want to contact this person every quarter.
Hmm.
That when that timeline reaches that point, it'll give me a little notification. Hey, you're supposed to contact this person. I can put as many notes as I want to, but it won't necessarily tell me this kind of email needs to be done. But I can set as many reminders as I need to in advance to make that happen.
Hmm.
But I'm definitely a visual person that if I see like a clock is not green, I immediately stress out about it and I need to get that done. So that is how that kicks my butt in gear.
Right.
Mhm.
So when most people, I mean, sure, the people that are watching this video right now are here to learn more about lead generation, and I would gather that 99%, if not 100% of them, it's in the context of direct marketing to generally non-broadcast clients, like you've been saying, e-learning, corporate, those kind of clients.
Mhm.
But how much has this helped you, if you've tried it at all, using lead generation to book an agent or a manager? Have you tried that? And if so, how much did it help?
I'm from my own personal experience, I haven't necessarily used it to contact an agent, but
Hmm.
I could see that being I think it can be a hard line to cross because I think with some agents and with some casting directors, for example, they're picky about how they want to be approached or they're
Hmm.
picky about how to maintain a relationship that I think it's a gray area because if there is an ability or I should reword this. If there is an opportunity for you to see an interview or see like a podcast or if they're doing some sort of workshop, if there is some way that you can view an interview or even if you can't participate in the workshop but maybe be an observer, and if a question like that is asked, see how they react to that question because some of them, if a casting director, there are some, for example, I don't necessarily know who, but I know that there are some who, if you reach out to them cold, they're like, who the heck are you? I don't want you to contact me like that. And there's some who welcome it. And I
Hmm.
think instead of possibly kicking yourself in the rear for, doing something that you think is the right thing to do, I would say maybe you can use it to compile data, but I wouldn't necessarily use it to send the email. I think it could be very useful to get all the information you need to eventually be able to figure out, okay, how does this agency like to receive submissions? How does this casting director like to be contacted? Do they prefer having a workshop situation or if they're at a conference? Okay, maybe I can introduce myself that way. I
Hmm.
think it'll be better for compiling data rather than let's talk to them right away. I think that can be a very gray area that needs to be very carefully researched.
This was a trick question, but it wasn't a trick question for you,
Oh, okay.
Nadia. This is a trick question for everybody that's watching this video right now,
Mhm.
because the one of the most important things about lead generation is to find out who the decision makers are and what's the best way to establish the relationship and the best way to maintain the relationship with them, right?
Yes.
With representation, it's explicitly clear. You go to the call sheet, backstage.com/resources, and it says, this is the person to contact, this is how you contact them, and this is how you submit for consideration for representation. And if you don't do that, the only thing they know about you is that you don't know how to take direction. So that's one thing. The other thing is, and and you touched upon it perfectly, Nadia, which is most casting directors aren't representation, but they're kind of in that ecosystem, in that bubble. Yeah. Managers, casting directors, and agents don't pay any attention to any of our solicitations to be represented, because exactly what you said is, who the heck are you? Which is why for most agencies to be able to get on their roster, you need a referral from somebody who is already on their roster.
Yes.
So, that's why I asked you the question that I did, and you answered it perfectly. It was perfect.
Thank you. Yes.
You was well done. So that's going to lead me to another question.
Okay.
Similar question. I'll predicate it by saying is that I teach my students that there are 3 what I call portals in the casting in the voiceover world. What connects you to casting opportunities? The first one is representation that we just talked about. The next one is self-marketing strategies, which include direct marketing, which is the vast majority of what we're talking about. But then there's that third one, which is online casting sites. Mm-hmm. How much, same question, but with representation, is how much can your lead generation stuff that you've been talking about help you when it comes to online casting sites?
So I think of it this way. I have had some clients or prospects tell me that they found me through a casting site. Mm. So in some ways, they're almost using that as a search engine. So I want to bring that to attention, is that as much of a tedious job as it can feel sometimes to get all those tags perfectly in place for all of your samples, they can actually help you, because that could be a way, let's say, for example, on Voice123 or Bidalgo, for someone to contact you directly, but you don't necessarily have to go through the casting site itself. Mm-hmm. Quite a bit of my work through online casting is because of that, because I have taken the time to really make sure that those samples are nicely labeled. Believe me, it was to try and get all of that done, but it pays off. It does pay off, I promise. So I think of it in that sense, that people on the casting site are using that as a search engine, something to think about. But I think as long as you are not violating the terms of service, so go back and make sure. There are some that are not happy with you contacting people outside of the platform. So just be mindful of that. And if you're not sure, go ahead and look back at the terms of service. But there are some that encourage you to have connection with this prospect outside of the platform. If I have received a message request, and some of them make it easier than others, I can look at who is posting that audition and try and find their their contact information. And maybe if I'm like, I like the way that this rate looks fair to me, or if they're willing to say, you set the rate, I might note that down in a CRM or note that down somewhere of like, this is an email of someone. If I see another audition that pops up with that same person, then maybe I can email them. But if it seems a little suspect, or if I get messages from them and they seem to be like, for example, I had this one person for a video game job. The rate was incredibly low, but I tried to be the benefit of the doubt. I tried to be respectful and say, usually I charge X amount per hour for a 2-hour minimum for video games. And they're like, well, we need this right away. I said, I understand that, but this is my rate. They would not budge. They seemed to be, trying to, that I was like, you know what, this is going to be more hassle than it's worth. I'm not going to continue this conversation. Compared to somebody else that maybe I wasn't the right fit, but that doesn't mean that I can't contact them outside of the platform to let them know, here is a skill set that I have for the genre that you're looking to hire in. Here's what I can do. Let's maintain a relationship outside of the platform. I think it depends. It depends on each one.
Right. I think the takeaway from everybody who just listened to Nadia's answer is that there can be a synergistic reciprocal relationship between the online casting site portal and the self-marketing portal. The loudest jerk in the Facebook group will always say that online casting is the devil. It's horrible. There's nothing good about it. It doesn't help you on any level. And direct marketing is the only way to be a true voice actor, obviously aside from having representation. But this is demonstrably false, because you can use marketing strategies through your online casting site portals to find them, develop relationships with them, for them to find you and develop relationships with you. And online casting sites are not just audition and pray one-off gigs. You can develop long-term sustainable relationships within the portal with one client, or they can, or both of you can decide to go off the portal and continue the relationship. And then they're actually now in your CRM. They're in Nimble now. They're in Close. They're in Wix. And what's the difference between them and everybody else at that point? Nothing. They're exactly the same client. You developed a relationship with them through just a straight up audition. You booked it. You worked well together. They wanted to continue relationship. Now they're unrecognizable from any other client that you would have gotten through any other marketing method.
And to add on to that, there have been some cases where I got the client from an online casting platform. They will send me an audition. They say, hey, I want to send this to you before I put this on the online casting platform. You will even get that extra level of, I trust you. We've worked together, like the work that you've done. Let me present this. Whether I end up getting the job or not, that tells me that we have that kind of relationship where they feel that they can send that to me early before they even go and post this in a way where they can find somebody new. Of course, I want them to find somebody new if that is what they want. But the fact that they already said, hey, for people we've already worked with, let's give you this audition, because why don't you have to go through the platform if we can just hire one of you again? So there is that as well.
Right. And another thing to remember, everybody, is that when you are auditioning for anybody through an online casting site or through your lead generation efforts and self-marketing strategies, you're not just auditioning for the one casting notice that they sent you, right? Nadia's nodding. Nadia knows. You're also auditioning for everything else that comes after that, because I literally, I got a free Backstage account. And so as the VO strategist, me wanting to just understand how all the casting site platforms work, I've been auditioning for it. I've been auditioning on there, the ones that are of industry standard rates, and I like the terms and all that stuff. But I just got about this past Friday, I was put on a hold for today for a good paying gig. I didn't get it, but the client emailed me and said, the contact client emailed me and said, I'm sorry, the client went in a different direction, but I love your voice and I definitely want to keep you in mind for future projects.
And that's still a win. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you get an email like that, Nadia, how does that fold into your lead generation, prospecting, marketing campaigns?
Oh, that person, if they haven't already gotten the label of prospect on my CRM, they now have that label, and I will now be able to contact them. When I have emails to send to my clients and prospects about upcoming out of office dates, they're getting that email. They're getting that quarterly update. They're getting those things that, I'm letting them stay informed of my everyday, because clearly they have expressed interest in wanting to work together, that I need to stay top of mind with them. Or if I feel that for whatever reason, I want to continue to interact with them even more past those quarterly updates. I think it depends on person to person, or what they kind of have, or how frequently they send you auditions. Then maybe I can supplement that with some social media interaction as well. And kind of add to that. But no, they definitely get the prospect label smack dab right then and there, put it in with the CRM.
Right. Even though the audition happened through an online casting site and not through your self-marketing strategies.
What I like to do, even if they send me that on message, say via Voice123, for example, I will message them back, be like, thank you so much, completely understand. Is there any way I can get your contact information, like your email, so I can keep you updated anytime I'm out of town for my home studio? I like to ask them that, so they know that's the reason that I want to email you. I'm not just going to bombard you with spam messages, because that's annoying. We hate that just as much as they would.
Right.
But at least they know, I do want to stay updated next time she's out of town. Yes, here's my email. So they even know the purpose of why I'm asking for it. it doesn't leave things kind of up in the air that they don't know, oh, well, how can I get in touch with her? Obviously, you put your email and your contact information very nicely labeled on your, profile, but just so they don't have to go through that extra step of clicking on your profile, you can ask for their information directly right after that message.
Folks, if you get nothing else from this conversation, is that using the booking out notice as the how to stay in touch, that's perfect. That is amazing. So right there.
So many people say the best way to get more work is to say when you're on vacation.
Yeah, says the guy who just sent out a booking out notice just this morning, because as soon as we're done having this conversation, my wife and I are driving down to Atlantic City for a couple days.
Oh,
so
nice.
And of course I'm going to get avalanched with voiceover, because that's always how that's. Oh, so yeah. So remember, kids, if your voiceover business is slow, go on a vacation. It'll take care of it right there. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. As you know, you're always welcome to ask any lead generation questions or anything voiceover related. AI, pay-to-play sites, SAG-AFTRA, agents, anything you want to ask. So while we're going to give our folks a couple minutes to come up with a question or two, I want to ask, what was your favorite voiceover gig that you ever did? It doesn't have to be the highest paying, or it could have been like a horrible thing that you got a great experience, that you learned something out of. So and not to put it you or any clients or gigs on the spot, but what was your favorite?
Yeah, I hated XYZ. No, I'm kidding. I won't be like that. Yeah.
Client bashing. No client bashing.
No client bashing.
No client bashing.
No, I would say there were two that are kind of funny to me. One of them was very, very funny in the sense that the fact that I sing opera helped me book this. So I initially auditioned for this commercial where it's one of my few claims to fame, is that I am the voice of a very sultry sandwich. Yes, you heard me correctly. Yes. So she is a sandwich, and for some reason I booked the role and they loved the voice for it that I did. But when we recorded the commercial, they wanted to do some retakes. And so they asked me, they say, Nadia, what's your availability? That when they asked me this, I was actually on an opera gig and I was away from my home studio. And I emailed them back saying, hi, here's my availability. I did want to inform you, I do have my travel studio, and because I'm working in an opera right now. Apparently, the CEO of the company freaked out, wrote a whole new commercial where the sandwich sang. And so our next commercial, the sandwich sings a little song. So anyway, all that to say, the singing sandwich was pretty fun. But in terms of a recent job, this one video game that I was working on for a year and a half finally came out last month. And it's one of the more higher tier video games I've been able to be a part of. But the fan base is incredible and everyone's been very, very kind. And it's very surreal to play the game and hear myself on it. I'm like, oh wait, I did that, and it's kind of fun in that sense. So I liked both of those, but there's so many.
Very cool.
Biggest one.
I was Inspector Gadget in Inspector Gadget Mad Time Party last year, and one thing that I did this last week was I bought the game and I tried to videotape myself playing it. Inspector Gadget plays Inspector Gadget. There were problems because I couldn't get the gameplay audio to be recorded while I'm here on StreamYard, recording it. But it was so weird hearing myself. Not only, I've been hearing myself for 25 years in radio and TV and whatever all the time, but to hear myself as that character, running around, go Gadget, roller skates and stuff like that was kind of nuts.
What triggers that line? Or I remember recording that line, or why did that trigger? Or they picked that take? That happens so many times. I'm like,
I've noticed that before too. I did a college. I got a college ad. I'm like, really? They went with that one? I'm like, okay, that was the weird one. I'm like, yes, they went with what I thought was the weird take. One that isn't just conventional cadence or rhythm of a commercial. So let's finish with talking about your actual lead generation blueprint. It's a course, but is there any live coaching that goes with it, or do they just purchase the course and just eat that with a spoon?
Yes, it is. There is currently no live coaching with that. I hope that the course is pretty, self-explanatory with live, or I should say recording examples of how to show this is a great example, this is a not so great example, and here's why. I tried to have actual on-screen footage of, let's do this in real time and see what happens. So there is currently no live coaching associated with that, but it is an online course that you would have lifetime access to. It is being updated currently as we speak, and you can have access to that. And it really just goes into deeper detail onto, using obviously Google or LinkedIn, but all of the social media platforms, some of these kind of outside the box methods to find it. And then even on top of that, what are some job titles that are associated for these type of genres, or what are some hashtags that these people on social media that you can reach out to that can give you work tend to use? What are the handles that they like to use for that? The hashtag, excuse me. So having all of those things as resources, that's what you have available to you. If you buy the whole course, or there's even, if you're a little unsure about getting the course, which I completely understand, there are even some like ebooks that are more of like, oh, here are the job titles that people in these type of genres use, or here are the hashtags that people in these type of genres use. So that's what's being offered.
Very cool. Oh, we do have a question. Mariella asks, oh, I can actually put it up here on the screen. Do you have any tips on asking for what you want and need?
Let me ask this question. In what context? Like asking a client what I would want and need, or asking representation? I guess I'm not sure who the audience would be on asking for what. Would it be a lead generator on asking, how do I find this particular information? I guess
That's a great, yeah, Mariella, if you can clarify, if you can flesh that a little bit in the comments, that would be great. Because I'm assuming it's either asking for what you want and need when it comes to trying to communicate with a lead, or trying to figure out how you're going to able to collect the information so you can reach out. Well, it's probably the first one, unless Mariella jumps in and clarifies. But yeah, well, like, oh yes, clients. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think what I want and need in terms of a client. Well, we put ourselves in the client's shoes. What does a client need? A client needs someone to work with them in a creative way, to elevate their product, to provide a service, to inform, what are we doing for the public? Who are their audience? What do they need? So in terms of us asking a client, we need to, instead of saying, what do I need? We should be asking, what do they need? What can I do to help them get what they need? That is answering the question of what we want and need is what the client wants and needs, because that's how we're establishing a relationship and providing a service, rather than, instead of them viewing us as a contractor, most of the time we're technically a contractor, they need to see us as a teammate, a team member. How can we help you? How can we help maybe the end client? What does the end client need? If they're, say, a marketing agency or something, or a producer or something of that nature. So we need to show them, here is what I can offer: broadcast quality studio, I have all of these, whether it be different accents, whether it can be different styles of performance, whether it can be this, I can provide all these different types of reads. I take direction super well. I'm very flexible with my time because I'm a full-time talent or I'm a part-time talent, and here are the hours that I'm available. You're giving them all the information for them to know, oh, I can literally email her right now and get an answer and be able to schedule this, whether it's within a 24-hour window, 48-hour window. You don't have to worry about getting things done. You have to wait, 5 weeks. You can provide that, because usually, typically speaking, we're at the end of a timeline of a project. We're towards the end of it. We're that final little polish before it gets released. So most of the time, and it's not a fault of the producer, it's not a fault of the creative director, sometimes timelines get a little mushy and sometimes things get rushed. So if we can provide that sense of calm, they love us for that. Just the other day, I had a booking on Friday. It was so last minute. They asked for my availability. I said, here's when I'm available. They said on the call, they're like, thank you so much. It's been such a busy day. Thank you for making this so much easier. We're providing that sense of calm, that sense of less stress, for them to be the hero to the end client, to say, look at what we just got done. And sometimes even if you say, hey, here's a rush fee, they're happy to pay it, because they know you have just saved their butt from possibly getting, a verbal beating or anything like that. So we need to make sure that what we want and need is what the client wants and needs.
Excellent. Okay, that's a perfect way to end this, because you just said the key thing is find out what their pain points are. It's not about who you are, it's about who they are and what they need and how you can serve them and the end client. So I posted on the chat blueprintcourseware.com, right? And that's where they can find you. You've got 3 websites going at the same time, right?
I do. That is the course website, blueprintcourseware.com. Yes.
Right. And then you've got your singing one, which is nadiamarshall.com. And then you've got your voice acting one, which is voicesbynadia.com, which I recommend everybody check out all 3 of them. I encourage all of you to connect with her and follow her and obviously buy her course. Her course is wonderful. And if this conversation that we just had is any indication of the quality of what you're going to get, then I would definitely say that it would be worth every penny of it.
Thank you.
Nadia, thank you so much. Man, did that go fast.
It did.
Can you believe that was an hour?
I mean, honestly, it was, we had some silly questions, the elevator pitch, all these kind of things, but absolutely. I love talking about this kind of stuff because if it can help you be able to grow your business like it has helped me grow mine, that's what matters. There's so much work to be had out there. So let's all get work and let's all do this. So
absolutely. Nadia, thank you so much for chatting with us. And I encourage everybody to go to blueprintcourseware.com. And thank you very much for watching this latest installment of the VO Strategist Ask Me Anything. And I encourage you all to go to vostrategist.com, book that free 15-minute consult with me, connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn, subscribe to this YouTube channel, do all those other fun things so I can help you navigate the voiceover industry. Nadia, thanks again so much, and hopefully I will see you at a voiceover conference or networking event soon.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.